Thanks everybody for joining today. We're excited to chat about creating custom learning portals for your external users. Myself, I'm Logan Guest. I'm our sales and marketing manager at Extranet User Manager. So I get the opportunity to work with lots of different clients, deploying our products and customizing our products, as well as working with partners like LMS365. Just some quick Teams meeting etiquette. Like Peter mentioned, this is actually our first regular Teams meeting. We wanted to give it a try, felt it would be more interactive. We're going to keep the chat open throughout the webinar. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to send those chats through. If you don't mind, please stay on mute. If you'd like to actually join into the conversation, feel free to ask and wait for an invitation. And most importantly, enjoy the content and learn a lot. Just some quick background of our organization. Oh,
sorry.
Just a quick timeline. Way back, actually, in 2008, Envision IT, which is the parent company to Extranet User Manager, built out custom extranet solutions, and since then we've just continually aligned with Microsoft and built forward. And some key points here in 2016, starting to support Azure B2B, which is foundationally a big portion of our product now. And then since then building out multiple versions of the product. A big item being establishing our partnership with LMS365 July of last year, and that really sparked the rebuild of the latest version of our product, which is going to be a part of the focus today. As far as customers go, we're well over 100 customers deployed globally. We work very closely with LMS and a lot of other partners to bring our products all over the globe. What I'll do now, I'll pass it to Peter for a quick intro.
Thanks, Logan. Yeah, so Peter Carson here, president of Extranet User Manager and Envision IT, also in Office Apps and Services, Microsoft MVP. In a past pre-COVID life, did lots of speaking and such at conferences and events. Actually, Logan and I started doing a bit of that last December, so it was nice to get out to Germany, to Vegas, to Washington, D.C., do some talks, get a vendor booth going, feel like maybe normal is starting to come back. Not quite yet, but hopefully getting there. Also the president of the local Toronto SharePoint users group. So all of our contact info are on our slides here. We're going to be sharing the deck and the recording afterwards, so feel free to reach out to any of us as we go through. And Aston, I'll pass it over to you.
Yep. Thanks, Peter. So yeah, I'm Aston Reyes. I'm one of the main consultants and trainers for LMS365, which is a learning management system that is on the Microsoft stack of products. I'm responsible for a lot of different things. And yes, I'm named after the car. So you will always remember my name, hopefully. So yeah, so some highlights for LMS365's timeline. eLearn First International, which is the parent company that made back in the day what was called SharePoint LMS for on-premise SharePoint solutions, started back in 2003. I kind of showed up around 2009, so kind of very similar to Extranet User Manager and Envision IT. We were also very closely aligning with Microsoft and what they were doing because of the products that we offer, all the way up until today, where we now offer LMS365, which is one of the flagship LMSs that you can have on the Microsoft stack of products. So yeah, and another thing about LMS365 today, we have now thousands of customers, hundreds of employees across the globe, which is crazy to me because we used to be much smaller, and a growing plethora of partners that we are working with, including Envision IT with Extranet User Manager.
Thanks, Aston.
Just some quick agenda points. We just went through introductions. Aston's going to kick things off, really talking about why Microsoft 365 makes sense for building out your learning portal. Then we're going to drill into an overview of the LMS 365 solution, as well as the latest version of our user manager. And then we're really going to focus on what that learner and administration experience looks like, because that's super important here is, what are these end user, potentially external to your organization, what are they going to experience coming in to take your training? And similarly, what is it like to create course catalogs and different courses? And then we're going to close with a summary, any questions, and then closing from there. I'll hand it over to Aston to kick off the next piece.
Yep. So yeah, why build a learning portal in Microsoft 365? Essentially, what we wanted to seek out was the fact that a lot of organizations already are invested in a bunch of different products all over the place, right? Especially back in the day, it was all over the place. Now with cloud-based products and with SaaS-based solutions, it made sense not to completely reinvent the wheel, right? Especially when it comes to training, because training seems to be something that every organization needs to have, regardless of which organization they are, right? And we saw that. We saw that a lot of people were in the Microsoft ecosystem. A lot of people had a need for a training platform. And it didn't really make sense to us to completely like upend your already existing investment in the Microsoft stack of products to have a completely separate thing for managing your learning, right? It made sense just to enhance what you already had because people were already getting used to things like SharePoint Online and then now with Teams and wanting to have everything all in one spot and nice and seamless. So we were able to do those kinds of things and incorporate them into the Microsoft stack of products. And then by association, also get some of the benefits, right? Like the security and compliance from Azure, integrating with all these other things that you already have in Microsoft. So that's the reason why we really wanted to change the mindset of how you can have your learning management. Because instead of having to do a completely separate thing, we want to encourage you to just enhance what you already have with LMS 365 and Microsoft 365. So some considerations of why you would want to make a training portal in your Microsoft stack of products, right? And what you would want to consider in terms of how you could do that. We can basically apply this logic to a lot of different things. Not only can you create an internal training portal for your organization, for your own internal employees, but now that we're in this world of cloud-based computing, we have the capability to go in and go even further than that. We can invite external users, guests. We can have them take different sets of courses. We can have a whole course catalog that users can browse through and find courses that they want to take. We can target specific courses to a specific set of people. So we can do something like, okay, we have a bunch of partners that we need to get trained on our product. How do we do that? Well, let's invite them over to our learning portal. They're external to our organization, but we'll invite them anyways, and then they can take their training or our training with a full set of products. That way we can get them up to speed really quick. So you don't need to just focus on just kind of like the stereotypical like, training and then going through and clicking on slides. You can actually think about it in more of an advanced way of how you can consider those different options to choose from, those different possibilities to go through, including things like e-commerce, which is another not paradigm, but another avenue that we are seeking into as an option of what it could actually be to have a learning management system that is part of your whole ecosystem in Microsoft 365. So yeah, meet LMS 365 basically. It is a full-blown learning management system that is built in natively into the Microsoft stack of products on Microsoft 365, formerly Office 365, depending on who you ask. And there's a bunch of different things that we can do. We can create traditional e-learning courses when we think of a LMS, but we can also manage webinar-based training. We can also manage classroom, physical room-based training, integrating with things like the Office rooms and equipment features so that you can actually book rooms through Office and stuff like that, along with a bunch of different other tools and capabilities like being able to create quizzes, being able to string together content from any source that you can think of. And you can create a course in a matter of minutes, if not seconds, if you have all the material already available. So you can literally create like a course that has a YouTube video, and then after the YouTube video, we have them go through this document, and then you have them go through this quiz. So you can easily create a course that is structured like that in a matter of minutes. So overall, what we're going to focus on today is the concept of course catalogs, training plans, and individual courses. So, and I kind of alluded to this earlier, a course catalog is basically going to be a place where we can have a bevy of different courses to choose from. So I like to equate it very similarly to like Amazon or eBay, where when you go to this page, you can find stuff that you want to buy. But in this case, it's going to be courses that you want to take. And hint, hint, with the e-commerce thing, maybe things to buy. Then we have the concept of training plans, which is the ability to string together multiple courses together into a set plan. So the common scenario that we do for that is like an introduction to like the company, like a new employee onboarding, where they have to take multiple courses, right? CPR training, sexual harassment awareness, things like that. Those are all things that you could make into a plan so that you have a set amount of courses that you send to your users. And then there's also just individual courses that you want your users to take, right? Oh, looks like everyone needs the HIPAA training for policy reasons. Let's mass deploy them to everyone, right? So there's a lot of different ways that you can deploy your training and different training options that you can focus on in LMS 365. Now, overall, this is the concept that we want to convey, and it's been what I've been talking about a lot overall, the whole Microsoft stack of products, the Microsoft ecosystem. View it kind of like Microsoft and the Microsoft Cloud is a house, right? And there's a bunch of different concepts inside of it, right? Outlook, SharePoint, Sway, Power BI, et cetera, et cetera. But what we want to provide for you on top of that is LMS 365, a learning management system that can integrate with the rest of this house. And also pay attention to the focus of the foundation, right? So the foundation is going to be Microsoft Azure, Active Directory. So it's going to be those things that are very base level, including Azure B2B is what we're going to be focusing on a lot today with Extranet User Manager. Overall, we really like to convey the idea that this house isn't just like one thing, it's multiple things, and it can expand on top of that, including with LMS 365 and Extranet User Manager. Overall, we can access the training through multiple different tools as well too for the modern workplace, right? So SharePoint for that rich-based learning platform experience that a lot of people have with developing an intranet in general on SharePoint, but then extended it even further to also serve as your training portal. You can access this training also through Teams, and you can also even do it through mobile devices as well too, because we actually have LMS 365 apps for iOS and Android as well too. But even if you don't want to download an app, you can still just really use your phone's web browser and still go to the SharePoint site and do it that way as well too, because LMS 365 is designed to be responsive in nature, so it will be able to be used on a mobile device without downloading any app if you didn't want to.
Cool. Thanks, Aston. That was great. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm going to do a similar sort of brief overview on Extranet User Manager and how it makes sense in the LMS scenarios that Aston was just describing. And then we're going to jump into live demo from there and actually take you through some sessions as part of that. So Extranet User Manager, if you're familiar with our products from the past, it was really about just the user management. How do I invite people in, put them in groups, and let them do things, whether that was in SharePoint Online, Teams, other Microsoft 365 products, or LMS 365 itself. And the family has really grown with this version 6 release that we've been baking since last summer. We had our first couple of releases in the fall, and we've actually got a big one coming out this week right now, which includes this portal piece. And the idea here is this is a portal that you can bring your external users to that has a very bespoke, customizable, branded experience for them. So they're not seeing Microsoft, they're not seeing Extranet User Manager, they're not seeing LMS 365. I mean, we branded this one as LMS 365 just to demonstrate that you can brand it, but imagine that it's got your own brand on there. And it's not just the pages in here, it's the emails that you receive, who they come from, what they look like. All of that is completely under your control. And it's not a SaaS solution, it's actually deployed into your environment. So we do use your Azure subscription and you basically own and manage this. So we're not asking for the keys to your Microsoft. We're basically deploying our product into your environment as part of that. So what are some of the reasons you might want to look at this? Well, the big thing with Extranet User Manager is this idea of delegation, to say, hey, IT is the gatekeeper for things like Azure Active Directory. And if you're not familiar with what that is, don't worry. But it's the bottom foundation of the house that Aston was talking about, which is where all the users are and all the groups that give them permissions to do different things are. And for obvious reasons, IT doesn't want to let general business users, even within their organization, carte blanche access into there. But what we've done with our User Manager product is built a rich model on top of that says, hey, IT, you can safely delegate these certain things out. So if we have a course administrator, for example, in LMS 365, they're creating the content, but they also know the people that need to take that course. And that's what we're going to go through here to say, how do we empower that course administrator to invite people in, to approve people that have requested, manage the content and work through that, and even own the brand, the experience, the emails around that whole side of things. But at the end of the day, IT is still the owner of Azure Active Directory. They still manage the permissions. So from a governance point of view, business is allowed to do what they need to do to get their job done, and IT is still comfortable from a security and a compliance point of view. And this doesn't have to be just for LMS 365. It can be much broader than that as well, to say, hey, we've got richer portal experiences that we want to expose through here as well. Now, the first thing we have to talk about is when bringing these guests in to your portal, whether it's for LMS 365 or some other purpose, how are they going to actually log in? And in the past, when we were on premise, just like LMS 365 was, we managed passwords and we had forgotten passwords, and it was a lot of grief. There was a lot of pain, both for the external users and for IT to manage that. And we did self-service and things around that. Nice thing is that all that goes away in this Microsoft 365 world. So it doesn't matter which of these three buckets you fall into. You as the organization providing the learning portal don't need to worry about credentials of the people that are coming in. And it makes it really smooth. Like, we just had a call earlier today with one of our clients, Ontario Association of Children's Aid Society. They've got tens of thousands of external users that need to do learning. They need to get into group portals and communication sites and all sorts of stuff in the Microsoft 365 ecosystem. And we used to have our older version of the product, managing passwords and doing all that for those tens of thousands of users. We transitioned them over the holidays this year to Azure Active Directory B2B like this. And yes, there's been some pain points. When you get into thousands and thousands of users, there's going to be ones that have issues there, but they've been quite minor. And we actually got feedback from their senior leadership today saying, you know what, this project's gone really well. Like, it was a big job to take these tens of thousands of users and migrate them across, but we didn't need to worry about credentials. All we needed was their email address. We invite them in and they manage it themselves. And then they get one of these three experiences depending on who they are coming in. So the simplest one is the first one. Let's say I invite Aston in. So Aston works for LMS 365, and they use Microsoft 365 themselves. So he has his own LMS 365 credentials. If I invite him on his email, he doesn't typically even need to sign in. He probably has a browser open to his organization's Microsoft 365 already. He opens a tab to come into our portal or to our learning site. He doesn't even enter credentials. It just takes him right in, single sign-on. So super simple there. If he does have to sign in, he's signing in with his organizational credentials. If he can't remember his password, that's not our problem. He's got to go talk to his own IT to sort that out. So that's the simplest one. And the second one is, well, what about those people that don't use Microsoft 365? They don't have a Hotmail or an Outlook.com account, Microsoft account. That used to be a painful process because Microsoft would make them sign up for an account, and it was multi-step and people would drop off. So if you've experienced that before, feel comfortable that that's gone away. They now have what's called a one-time passcode. And I'm going to actually show you this. Basically, when I go to sign in and I don't have 365 credentials, it's going to send an email to my email address. It's valid for 30 minutes. I can only use it once. I type that code into the login and I'm in. So it's super easy. It's low friction. And it also validates that user actually owns their email address. This is actually one of the big challenges with external portals like this. How do you know when somebody leaves your partner organization? When in the first case, I mean, Aston's been at LMS 365 for 13 years now. If he decides to leave, odds are eLearning Force is going to shut his account down. And as soon as they do that, he's not going to have access to our portal anymore. No offense, Aston. I'm not saying you're going out the door, but
none taken.
Yeah. But even in that second scenario, let's say I work for an organization that doesn't use Microsoft 365. I go to sign in, and guess what? I need access to my email to get my sign-in code, and I don't work for that org anymore. I'm not getting my passcode, so I'm out from that point of view. So it's a nice way to manage that from how we keep track of those external users point of view. And then the third one is more of an optional. You don't have to turn this on. You can light up federation with Google and Facebook to say, hey, let's let people come in with their Gmail account and use their Google credentials to come in, just like you see on a consumer site, and same thing with Facebook. I mean, that scenario often doesn't exist in the B2B world, like the Children's Aid Society that I was talking about. All of their members are coming in from member societies and such. They didn't really want the Gmail option as part of that. But if it's a more public-facing type of portal that you're building and you're providing learning maybe for fee under the e-commerce scenario that we'll explore, maybe Gmail and Facebook does make sense in those scenarios. So that's sort of the different experiences that people have coming in there.
Hey, Peter.
I'm going to take Darren's question there. This is an interesting one. So the question is, can a one-time passcode be sent to SMS? And you're not the first person to ask us that. It's something that we're actually thinking about. Microsoft doesn't have it yet. I've seen other vendors like Okta supports that from a sign-on point of view to say, hey, we'll send you a code to your text, SMS, and then you can type it in similar to the one-time passcode. We could extend it. It actually wouldn't be that hard for us to build a little bit into our product to say, hey, if we see this email address, switch it over to this and have it go to your SMS. What I'd rather see though is have Microsoft actually support that. Everything we're doing is layering on top, from that house point of view of what Microsoft already provides. So they know about it. I've heard them talk about that. There's another one similar to that, which is the passwordless authentication, to say, hey, I set up my Authenticator app with your portal, and when I go to log into your portal, instead of me going to my email, I just hit approve on my Authenticator app, and now I'm into your portal. And that's something that's coming as well. So Microsoft's aware of this. They're improving that user experience, and user experience is something that's very close to our heart. We spend a lot of time talking about how to improve that. In fact, I'm going to talk about a few tweaks as I take you through our demos that just came up in the last day or so as we're doing dry runs for this. So Darren, I hope that answers the question for you.
By the way, a quick aside, I actually have the password list turned on my personal Outlook account, and it's great because like when you're signing on to Xbox, you don't have to use a controller to type in your password, which is always easier, a pain. Yeah. Just on your phone and then approve, hey, I'm logged in. So definitely there's a lot of stuff coming.
So there's kind of three onboarding experiences that we're going to talk about here too. The first is the common one that we actually see with a lot of the LMS365 clients, which is they know who they want to bring in for training. So the course administrator knows who needs to take that training, even for the external people. I just want to invite them in. So we're going to take you through that scenario. And there's automation that we can extend with. We use a lot of Logic Apps, which is a Microsoft workflow tool, makes it very easy to wire in things like Dynamics 365, Salesforce, SAP as part of these. And we've done that on a number of our projects as part of that. So that's number one that we're going to go through. Number two, private registration is, hey, it is a private group that I want to bring in, but I don't know who all those people are. But if I can give a link to one person and have them kind of spread it around, then that's great. And maybe I still want to have an approval, and we'll go through that scenario. Then the last one is, hey, anybody can sign up for this course. And the e-commerce one actually fits nicely into this. If they paid you with a credit card, you shouldn't disapprove their enrollment after you've got their money. You should just let them in and take the course. So let's actually go through those scenarios. So we're going to start with the direct invitation scenario first. And we'll come back to this page in a minute. I'm going to flip over in the demo and go through this invitation process. So let's start in the browser here. And this is our EOM admin. This is not the portal. I'm going to get there in a second. This is where your IT administrators configure the product, but it's also the place where folks like the course administrators that maybe own one or more groups would come in to invite people and to manage things. And we've got a rich security model. We can trim this down and say, hey, those course administrators can't add new groups. That's an IT role. So it's all role-based in terms of what people see in here. So let's start by having a look at the groups that we've got. And we've actually got three groups that we're going to be going through here today. The course catalog is that broad set that Aston was talking about. And we'll show you what it looks like to say, yeah, I just want to browse some courses. And that's the one that we're going to do as invitation only. The training plan we're going to do second, that's the private registration. And then the e-commerce is the public scenario we'll do third. So let's come into the course catalog first. So Extranet User Manager allows you a lot of control over how these groups work, how people onboard into them, and such from there. So there's some general details in here. What's important in this scenario is to come into the join page and say, how is this group set up? Well, it's set up as invitation only. It's not private or public. You have to get a direct invite to come in here. So there's no landing page to ask to join. Somebody has to invite you in as part of that. And then once you're in, where does it link to? Well, this is actually a URL into SharePoint Online to the course catalog. So we'll show you what that experience looks like. And then there's a welcome email that you define to say, hey, when somebody gets added to this group, regardless of how they came in, they get this email, which is completely branded, and who it comes from is under your control. In this case, we've said, hey, just have that link go straight to the course catalog itself. And then we can see who's actually in the group from a members, owners, membership managers. We'll come back to this page in a second. But let's take the scenario that I want to go through. I've already used my webinar 1, so let's use a webinar 2 as a brand new user. So now I'm in the add user page. So I'm a course administrator. I know somebody new. They've never been to the portal before, and I want to bring them into a course catalog. Get creative with our names. I'm using a commercial service called Mailinator. It's a great test way for demo purposes, just to create up, made up email addresses quickly as part of this. And in addition to adding the user, I need to say, well, what group is this user going into? So I'm going to type in the course catalog, bring up that, pick it, and say, okay, I'm now ready for that user to come in. That's really all that I need to do. Provide a name, an email. I mean, we've got lots of other profile fields in here. We've got manager lookups and departments and things like that. This page can be tailored and customized to say, hey, we don't care about that. Just take it off. Keep it really simple. It's up to you how you want to configure it from that point of view. Let me go ahead and save that. So what it's doing is it's adding the user as a guest into our EUM demo Azure Active Directory, which is the Microsoft 365 tenant that we're using for this. It's putting them in the group, so they have access to the course catalog. So I didn't need to do anything in LMS 365. I do all my work in here. And then it sent an email to that person saying, hey, you've been invited into this course. Here's the link to invite out. So I'm going to run two browser profiles. I'm going to flip it into an in private window and go to Mailinator as if I'm going to my inbox as that person that just got invited. I can just type in webinar 2 up in here, and I can see here's that welcome email that I was showing you in the admin to me personally, and you can customize and put replacements and all sorts of cool things in there. But basically, it's explaining, hey, I've been invited to the training portal. Click here to access the course catalog. And you don't really see the link in there because Mailinator is hiding it. But when I click that, it's going to validate the link, flip me over to SharePoint Online. Now, I haven't logged in yet. I was invited as a guest, but I still need to log in. Now, we're going to tweak this one so I don't have to type my email address in again. We can have that as part of the link. That was one of the tweaks that we talked about earlier today. But for now, I put my email address in, I hit next, and this is where the one-time passcode comes in. So Microsoft says, hey, Mailinator's not a Microsoft 365 customer. I'm just going to email them the code. So if I go back to my Mailinator window, back to my inbox, I see I just got an email from Microsoft. All I need to do is copy that verification code and paste it back in here. And you can see that was very easy. You can even set up policies that say, hey, don't require people to re-authenticate every time they come in, make it valid for 30 days. There's always a security trade-off that you need to discuss from that point of view. Now, I'm coming in the first time here, so I need to accept some things to say, hey, Envision IT, who owns this EUM demo tenant, wants to share this site with you. Do you trust that? Because basically, you're granting our portal access to see you, to sign you in. That's all, basically. So it's pretty low risk from that point of view. So I accept that. Now, we haven't turned on the additional features, but there's things you can do with Azure AD Premium to say, hey, we have a terms of use that we want people to accept. There's identity protection, and you can do multi-factor authentication. I often encourage against doing multi-factor authentication for guests. I know MFA is super important for everybody, but there's a pain point of setting it up for the external users, and it gets confusing for them, and they just drop off and end up not taking your course. So you, again, need to balance that out from that point of view. So now I'm in LMS 365. I'm in our SharePoint.com Microsoft 365 tenant as a guest, so I'm not part of this tenant normally. And I can actually browse through the catalog. So I can click different categories in here. I can do a search to say, hey, Teams is really cool. I want to learn more about it. Let's go into a particular course and view that Microsoft Teams course. Now, initially, when I come into this page, it doesn't show me as enrolled. That enrollment will actually happen automatically. It's just a timer job, so it'll take a little while. But I could skip that and say, hey, I'm just going to enroll directly into that course. So now I'm set up as a learner in this course in LMS 365, and I can actually start playing with the content and going through that experience. And you may not notice my browser is flipping over to Microsoft login periodically there. That's the single sign-on happening because I'm going to different systems. But as a user, it's transparent. I don't see any of that. So here I am in the course syllabus. I can say, hey, let's just start going through this. Let's watch a video on what Microsoft Teams is, go through some content through here. Okay, this looks cool and interesting. And once I'm finished this, we can do quizzes and surveys and things like that. You can say, hey, I need all my staff to confirm that they've actually gone through this training. It's a very common scenario from an LMS point of view. So I've now completed that first module in Microsoft Teams. I went a little faster maybe than I should have, but you get the idea from that point of view. So that's the course catalog side. So let's come back to our deck for a second, and let's talk about the private registration. So this scenario, maybe I know this one person and I can email them a link, and then they can email a link out to all the other people, or SMS it or Teams message. It doesn't really matter how people get that link. They could even put it up in their own company portal to say, hey, if you need to take partner sales training for this organization that we work with, here's the link to sign up for their course. They click that link, and basically what happens is if they don't already have an account, it'll take them through a self-registration. If they do, it'll just take them through that queue to join that course. So let's flip back to our browser here. Do that search groups again. And we're going to use the training plan example. So this is, rather than a kind of self-serve buffet of courses to pick, there's a specific set of courses that have been set up for a particular role. So if I go into that training plan group here and I look at its join page, it was a little different. The previous one we had invitation only. This one is set to private, and we've turned approvals on. So people can share that link with whoever they want, but we're still going to have control as a course administrator over who we actually let in that. And basically they need to have this link here, and it looks ugly. That's on purpose. We don't want people to be able to easily guess that link as part of that. So let me just copy that link. So imagine I'm the course administrator. I'm giving it to that first person who's going to spread it around that organization. They're going to come in and sign in. And let's say one of those people is this person that just went through the direct invitation scenario. So I can paste that link. So imagine I got it through an email or through a intranet link. I say, yeah, I want to join that course. And the first thing that we do is bring up a page that explains, well, what is it that you're asking to join? So let's give some context around why you might want to use this link and join this. And this is actually all under control of the course administrator. So in addition to defining the welcome email that goes out for this to access the training plan, they also get to define the content that appears on that page that was just there. So how do you want to sell this course? How do you want to pitch it to people before they hit this join button to go in through there? And this is a full rich editor. You can do what you want from an images, videos, any web content you want to put in here will then show up in the portal over here for those users to come in. Now, at this moment, I'm not logged in yet. You might say, well, didn't you log in before? Well, yeah, I logged into the course catalog, but I actually never logged into this portal yet. So I haven't done that step yet. So if I click the join training plan, the first thing it's going to do is say, well, I need you to log in first so I know who you are before I put your request in to join that plan. Now, I'm going to mess this up a little bit just as a step, and then I'm going to come back here. So imagine I'm using an email that's not the one that registered before or that was direct invited before, but it's somebody brand new that's never come into this site. So when I hit continue here, what we're doing in the portal is we're asking Microsoft Azure AD to say, do we know this person as a guest? And Azure is saying, nope, never seen that email before. So we're taking them into registration form. And it doesn't need to look like this. This was actually built for one of our clients that had clients, partners, and general public that needed to come in. We thought it was cool, so we use it as the demo scenario. You can completely customize this. And again, this often has integrations into backend, Salesforce, Dynamics CRM, things like that as part of that as well. So I need to fill in whatever we've defined as required through here and go ahead and do the registration and then continue through that process. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to that login form, take the garbage off of that, and say, I want to log in with that account that was invited. Now, I'm still in that same browser window that already went in over on LMS365. So when I hit continue here, again, it goes to Microsoft, but it doesn't ask me to log in. It doesn't send me a code because I'm still signed in the session. This is part of the beauty of Microsoft and Azure AD is all these different places that you go to all use the same identity. Once you've signed into one of them, you're in all of them until you close your browser down. So this one here says, hey, your request has been submitted and you'll receive an email when it's been approved. And the reason it did that, because if I come back over here, I've got the approvals turned on. And basically whoever is what's called a membership manager or a group owner, the people that manage this group will get an email notification saying, hey, webinar 2 just requested access to this particular group. I'll skip that email and just go ahead and select that user and say, I'd like to approve that user to come in. So I hit approve. They're gone out of that list. I refresh it over here. I see my webinar 2 is now a group member. And if I come back to the portal, there's a couple of things that I can do. Sorry, I've got too many windows going here. So one is I can go back to my email. If I go to my inbox, I'll see that I've just received an email for the training plan. So that welcome email that's specific to the training plan. It's different than the course catalog one that we got first. I can use that to click in a link for them. What I can also do, though, is I can actually come into the portal itself, now that I'm signed in, and we know which things you're in and which things you're not. So it's saying, hey, you already got invited into the course catalog. You can just go explore that course catalog. Now you're in the training plan. You can go open that training plan. But this e-commerce course, that's our third scenario we haven't come to yet. That's the join that we'll go to as part of that. But let's use the training plan example here. So I click on that. Now I'm into the LMS365 onboarding training plan. Same thing, it's not immediately enrolled. It will be after a period of time, but I can skip that and enroll right in. So now I'm enrolled in the course and I can go through these courses. Now there's actually not really anything in this course. This is a future state. We actually want to use LMS365 to provide training to our partners on how they use our product and to our customers as well. We see it as an awesome use case. We're going to build a customer portal for our customers that uses User Manager and LMS365 together to provide a whole onboarding to the product side of things. And this is sort of the genesis of that. So now I'm in that training plan. I can go through those courses and such through there. Now, the other thing I can do in LMS365, we'll come back here. This is just a SharePoint communication site. So you can dress this up however you want. You could actually turn this off and say, hey, we just want people to come to this portal over here. It depends how you want to configure your setup, but I can come into my training dashboard. And this is another LMS365 feature that says, hey, remember I went into that Teams course, so it's showing as in progress, and then I haven't started that onboarding training plan. You can manage certificates, transcripts, leaderboards is something we should probably turn off in this scenario because you probably don't want external people from different organizations comparing who they are and how they're doing in the training. So you need to think about sort of the privacy side of things as you're going through this as part of that. And one thing I'd like to see is back on this portal homepage, once I've signed up for one of these, have my training dashboard just light up in this portal as well to make it very easy to go right into that training dashboard. So that was our second scenario. Our third scenario is both self-registration and e-commerce. The idea is that I request to join a group, and we're actually using Stripe as the payment vendor here, and I can go through what's called a public registration. So it takes me through that sequence and that registration form if I haven't already signed in, and then charges my credit card, and then away I go from there. So don't get too excited. The credit card I'm going to use here is not a live real credit card. It's a Stripe test credit card. So don't go shopping on Amazon with it. But I can come here and say, hey, I'd like to join this e-commerce course. And sorry, before I do that, what I should have done is come back over here and quickly shown you how this group is set up. So we come back to my search groups and go into that e-commerce course. So we actually have spots in groups to say, hey, this is a course we're going to charge for, or a group. It doesn't have to be a course. It could represent something different. This one we want to charge $100 Canadian as part of that. And that lights up the Stripe integration automatically as part of that. And in the join page, you can explain that, hey, there's a $100 fee for this. We actually explain the test credit card number, so you can try this out yourself as part of this. If you've been watching the URLs, they are live. You can go hit them. We'll chat them out as part of this, and you can, by all means, try out the scenarios that I've gone through here yourself. So let's come back to the portal. So I'm now that external user coming in. Now, remember, I've already signed in. So we're going to skip the registration piece of it and go straight to the join group. So the portal knows who I am, but it also knows that this particular course has a $100 fee associated with it. It is an LMS365 course, so there's branding you can do in Stripe as part of that as well. And I'll just put that dummy credit card number in that we use for testing purposes. Doesn't really matter what we put in for any of this other information. Kind of looks like an address. There we go. They've actually got some cool Google Maps address lookup integration in Stripe that I'd love to get in our product as well as part of that. So it's completed my purchase, and it's taken me back to the portal to say, hey, you're now in the course. You can access that e-commerce course through here. And likewise, if I come over to my Mailinator, there's my email welcoming to the e-commerce course. Let's come back over to the portal, click that link. And now we're in the integrated e-commerce course within that. Now, what we've been doing is all in one site collection for LMS365. So that course catalog the courses that were in that training plan in this one course are all kind of together. We're just showing you the wide open, the narrower, the very discrete level within that. You can set up different site collections for different organizations or different scenarios to keep those completely separate from each other. That's all available to you as a course administrator in LMS365. So I can go ahead and enroll in this course. And if I come back to my training dashboard over here, I now see my e-commerce course in there along with my other two, and I can jump right back into those courses directly from my training dashboard here as well. If you are trying out our portal, sorry, I think I've lost my portal window. Hang on a sec. Full caveat, there is a little bug here that the e-commerce one doesn't show up when I join it. We're going to fix that probably later today. So if you're trying it out later, that'll explain from that point of view. But you can actually go through all three of those scenarios. In fact, Logan, I'm using the wrong URL here. This is our underlying other websites one. It's actually the EOM demo one is the main one that we want to use as part of that. And as part of that. There we go. So if you want to chat that URL out to people, actually encourage people to try it even during the session here. You won't blow up my demo because I've done the demo part of it, so we're good from that perspective, and always curious for feedback, people, from that point of view. Okay, so let's switch hats back to the course administrator. I'm back in EOM admin. You know, I can search and add users, I can search and add groups, so I can go back to the learners here. I can say, hey, I'm looking for those webinar users. There's my webinar 1 and 2. I actually want to look at that webinar 2. I can see the groups that they belong to. You know, I could easily say, hey, I don't really want that person in the training plan. Let's just nuke them out of that. And their portal will update from that. And they'll have no longer have access to that particular training plan as part of that. So it's very easy to manage it from that perspective. And you can see it from the other perspective as well when you go into the individual courses to say, hey, I want to know, you know, who the members are on the course. I can add and remove people through here. So there's various different ways you can manage things from that perspective. The other thing that we do is we actually allow our product to be extended to add additional administrative links in here. And one of the things we put in is a link over to the LMS365 config. And this is a whole nother site and application on the LMS365 side. We won't go too deep in it here, but it's basically where you build your courses and where you structure all that out. So all those courses that I was going through in that course catalog, we've got in here. There's my integrating e-commerce into LMS365. I can see how many people were enrolled in it, who's completed it, ratings and things like that. But I actually build the course out through here as well. The learner administration and the learner list, you don't actually need to do too much here because we have all of that in the user manager, and that's actually the better place to manage it from that point of view. But from a content and course point of view, you know, even configuration of LMS itself, you know, setting up those certifications and notifications and things like that. You can do emails through LMS 365 as well to say, hey, you know, you've got something happening with your course. Maybe it's an in-person. You want a reminder the day before, hey, don't forget to show up tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. to this location. Those are all things that you can do as part of LMS 365 as well. So rich admin experience on that side too. So the portals that we've been showing you there is being very focused on the LMS 365 scenario, but these portals have a lot more functionality in them. Like I said, the training can be just a portion of that. You may have document interactions. There's a whole content management system and user manager piece to it above and beyond just from an LMS point of view. You know, in fact, Publisher is part of the product. We provide the ability to author and edit the sites right through the browser itself as well. So if I come over to the portal here, and let's log in not as a learner, but as an administrator now. And let's say I want to play with this page here. It's actually taking a second. There's a bit of JavaScript running behind there. You know, maybe I want to change this content or put something in this big white space area like that training dashboard link as part of that. I can actually come in here and say, hey, I want to edit this page. Now, this page isn't maybe a typical one. It's actually got a lot of HTML and JavaScript saying, hey, find out what groups you are in and show and hide different things. So it's a more complex one. But if I was to pick a simpler one, like for example, our terms of use link here. This is a placeholder one. It doesn't have much in it, but I could edit this page in here and say, hey, this is Peter's webinar. Go ahead and save that. And there's my updated content for everybody to see in the portal. And you can actually delegate that to your course administrators as well to say, hey, you can be content owners on this portal that people come into as part of this experience too. So in terms of next steps from here, as Logan's mentioned in the chat, we are going to be posting up the slides from the session and the recording. Those should be up, if not later today, by tomorrow. There will be a follow-up email we'll send out to everybody, quick forms poll, some background and such from there. If you are interested in going deeper, either from a user manager or an LMS365 or both scenario, please reach out. We can coordinate with Aston on the LMS365 side to book a demo and go deeper on that side. Logan can coordinate on the user manager side to go deeper from that perspective. We do have a couple of upcoming events coming up. The next one is going to be mid-February. This is actually on the Envision IT side of our house, which is our consulting side of the organization, talking about file share and SharePoint migrations and our team's first approach there. The idea here is, even if you're not using Teams as an organization today, you probably will be fairly soon. I mean, everything is moving massively across to Teams from a Microsoft point of view. And if you've got existing file shares or SharePoint on premises or classic SharePoint online stuff that you need to modernize, that's what this is all about. It's how do we inventory, catalog, make decisions, use Power BI reporting and such around that, and facilitate that migration using either free Microsoft tools or commercial tools like ShareGate or Zilio that we're going to be talking about. And then in March, we're going to be talking about Power BI dashboards. This is actually a really cool thing. We're launching a new data portal product within the portal that I was just showing you. You can actually expose Power BI dashboards. You can have a learner's dashboard. You have all sorts of corporate or external facing data. We're actually planning on using this to build a partner portal so they can see opportunities that they have registered with us, customers they have licensed, and when are they up for renewal, all that kind of stuff we can expose out through Power BI. And historically, the challenge has been Power BI is very expensive. You have to license every user, even external users. Well, we've found a way around that to say, hey, still within the guidance of Microsoft, can we use Power BI embedded in a creative way to conserve your costs and say for a couple $100 a month, can you run a Power BI portal as part of your external portal and not get into thousands or tens of thousands of dollars of licensing costs? Just pausing. I know I've been going fire hose here. Questions from the group, Logan, that we want to cover off?
There was one question there around any support for localization translations.
That's a great point. So we're actually about to launch a new portal for Canadian Electricity Associations. We're based in Canada. Bilingual is a big thing for us, and part of that project was to provide multilingual support to our product. That's something that LMS365 has historically done for a long time. They're a Danish company. The Europeans are way better than North Americans from a multilingual point of view. So we have built full multilingual support into the product. We're not 100% done on that. So we started the focus on the portal side. That's ready to go. You can actually build an English, French, or a multi-language portal, or just have a different language. Maybe you just want a German portal if you're in Germany. That's up to you from a content owner and deployment. The piece we haven't tackled yet, we've got a lot of product backlog ideas around, is the user manager side, to say, hey, when I'm in user manager admin here, doing things like looking at the welcome email, we need the ability to flip this and say, well, I want to see the English welcome email versus the French. We know how to do it. It's just we haven't got to it yet. We've got a lot of stuff on our product backlog, but that's absolutely part of the product roadmap from that point of view. Logan, other questions there?
No, that was it.
Okay. Cool. Aston, any last wrap-up points you want to circle back on?
I mean, there was a clarification, but it was mostly just when you get added to the course catalog, you don't get automatically enrolled into any courses unless that group was added to a specific course, right?
Right.
So that more so is like if you're just getting access to the course catalog itself. It doesn't automatically enroll. It's just, here's the options.
You got to pick the courses you want to enroll.
You got to pick the courses you want to enroll into. Exactly. So, and that being said, too, there's a lot of opportunities for even more extensibility, maybe even some options to automate stuff through Logic apps or through Microsoft Power Automate. So I think there's a lot of possibility to expand what is possible with both Extranet User and LMS365 together when we get that can of worms open as well, too.
Yeah, if people are curious from an enterprise integration point of view, we do a lot of that kind of work, and it's really interesting in the latest version because we're leveraging things like open APIs that we've built and Logic apps. It makes it really easy to build those kind of integrations. We've done a lot of that. So happy to dive deeper into the solution architecture in a one-on-one or different session from that perspective. So I thought we were going to run out of time. I probably should have taken a few more breaths as I was talking. It's going pretty quick there. But happy to give people 10 minutes back as part of that. I think it was a great session. Aston, thanks so much for joining us as a partner on this, and really excited about the partnership between Extranet User Manager and LMS365.
Yep, certainly glad to be a part of this. And I'm definitely interested in your whole Power BI course, because literally yesterday I was talking with a client and they're like, what do you mean we have to buy Power BI licenses? And I'm just like, sorry, I don't even make commission from this. Like, that's what's needed. So the possibility to do it without licensing would be fantastic. Yeah.
So if people are interested in that, by all means, check that next webinar out from that point of view. Or I guess it's 2 webinars out, isn't it? Yeah, the March one. But if you can't wait till March, by all means, reach out and we can certainly explore ideas on that side too.
Oh, we have a new question.
Compliance and GDPR. So from a GDPR perspective, I mean, at the end of the day, we're sitting on top of what Azure AD is already doing. So whatever Microsoft has in place from a forget me forever concept perspective still applies here. And when I didn't actually show deleting a user, I just showed taking a user out of a group. But if I'm back in the admin console, and let's say I'm just done with that particular webinar user. I won't do it with the webinar 2 one that we were playing with, but let's use the webinar 1 from earlier. And I say delete that user. Everything that we're doing here in the admin console is live talking to Azure Active Directory. So we don't keep our own database. There's no record other than Azure Active Directory. So as long as you set up your compliance in your Azure AD appropriately from a GDPR or any other perspective, then we just sit on top of that from that perspective. Now, Aston, do you want to talk on the LMS 365 side?
Sure, yeah. So basically, it's similar, but LMS 365 is a SaaS product, right? Whereas Extranet User Manager is not. It's an enterprise application on top of your existing Azure environment, right? When it comes to LMS 365, we have a full-blown trust center that has all the bells and whistles about compliance and whatnot, especially since GDPR, Danish company, like we made sure to cover our bases. So definitely, like there's capabilities and options. Essentially, what it is specifically too is that even though it's a SaaS product, LMS 365 is still hosted on an Azure, and during the installation process, you choose which Azure region you want your content to reside in, and you have full rights to be able to remove and do things with that as well too.
So the follow-up question, if they remove out of Azure AD, if I do what I just did there, what drives the cleanup in LMS 365?
It's basically automatic. So because the account doesn't exist anymore, the LMS recognizes that the account doesn't exist. What will actually happen from an LMS perspective is that it will keep the training records as a user in the database as is deleted true. From a technical perspective, basically just means that like they know the user used to exist, we're still retaining their data, but there is deleted true, but you can still purge that user as well too. So if you needed to completely clear out the data, you can totally easily do that with
generally you would want to, but if somebody had a request to say I need to push a button, then you can absolutely do that.
Yeah, and there's definitely a button for that to purge a user from the LMS so that all the records in general are just deleted. If the user still exists and you have automations to automatically enroll them into courses, that's a different story. But basically that purge user option would be the case. And you can either do that through a button on the LMS, but also there's ways to do it on the API. So if you wanted to do an API command automatically with a Power App or with a logic flow, so that when you delete a user from EUM, it also does the purge already, that's something that you can probably incorporate pretty easily.
Right. Okay. I want to be mindful of people's time. We've still got a few minutes we can hang out here to answer questions. But if you need to drop off for any reason, we've kind of covered the main part of the webinar. I just want to say thank you to everybody for joining in, and look forward to continuing conversations on the topic. But Aston, if you don't mind hanging back, if there's some follow-on questions, let's keep them coming by all means.
Yeah, so I see a quick one. So can you import any SCORM-based training? LMS365 supports SCORM 1.2 to 2004, all versions, as well as AICC. We're working on Timcat and XCPI, but that's kind of a moving target. But we're hoping to bring that in as well too at some point. But yes, SCORM tends to be the one that's 90% of the market anyways. So yes, all versions of SCORM for the most part. Within reason though, I mean, if your SCORM has Flash, then Flash is not supported. So stuff like that is understandably so not going to be something, like, technically speaking, it would work if you still had Flash installed, but even Adobe doesn't want you to have Flash installed anymore, and they made it. So stuff like that.
Cool. Let's Ilya, comment on the e-commerce side. So it's actually quite straightforward to set up. What needs to happen? We're still documenting the process in our install guide, but basically you have to go to Stripe and set up your own account, connect it up to your banking from a deposit point of view, and Stripe gives you a secret key that gets put into our portal to say, hey, wire this account up into our portal. And then when somebody comes in, if you've set up a group with the e-commerce dollar amount and currency set on that group, that's what triggers the Stripe to go from there. So it's quite straightforward. You really, there's some base setup you need to do with Stripe. Once you've done that and you've got it configured in your portal, it's just a matter of saying, hey, this group is something that we want to charge for, whatever that may represent, put the dollars in for that, and away you go from there. That Canadian Electricity Association scenario, we're actually hoping to do a webinar fairly soon, possibly even before mid-March on that topic as well. We've gone even further with e-commerce for them. We've got the ability to say to people, hey, can you put a credit card in and buy 10 seats or 100 seats for people in your organization, and then those people can sign up for courses, and they don't need to pay individually. You've paid bulk. They use Great Plains as their back-end finance. Could they invoice and say, hey, somebody's paid an invoice for 100 seats, let's light that up. There's lots of different scenarios we can support from that perspective. I think that's pretty much everything on the chat, Logan.
Yep.
Cool. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining again, and have a great rest of your day.